Hello and welcome to or back to MBWK. Today's video has been in the pipeline for such a long time now, and that's my bestseller of 2025. This video is going to be a tutorial on how to build these LED and solar lanterns. I'm going to walk you through the whole process of designing these lanterns from start to finish. It incorporates a 70mm solar LED in the top here. If you don't want to use the solar light, there is an option to create a blanking panel for the top with a handy eyelet to cover up that hole, and you can just use the bayonet system on the bottom. So you can place an LED tea light in the bottom here, not a standard tea light. We don't want any flames inside our lanterns. But I go through the whole process of making this from start to finish. Now the video is over an hour long, so if you don't want to invest the time in learning how to create this step by step, there will be a link in the description to my Etsy shop. The files will include a 3mm thickness, a 4mm thickness, 5mm thickness, and 6mm thickness versions. I've tested all of these to make sure that they work. They will be available in different formats, so LBRN2, which is the Lightburn file, the AI, which is Adobe Illustrator, DXF, and SVG file formats. I will also leave a link in the description to the assembly video for these, because there's certain things that we need to go through in case there's a discrepancy in material thickness, and a couple of tips along the way, such as kerf test components, just to make life a little bit easier. So without further ado, thank you very much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll get into the design work. So to kick this design off, we're going to start with this mid layer here. There's two layers of this large hexagon right here. We're going to start with this bottom layer of the two, which the decorative panels attached to. So what we're going to need to do is go across to the polygon tool. We want to hold Control and Shift and just drag out a polygon. We're going to put this on the red layer, so just select the red layer whilst it's selected. We want to make sure that the padlock is closed to keep the aspect ratio the same, and we're going to type in 180mm. From there, what we want to do is hold Control and press D to make a duplicate, and then we want to make the second hexagon 73mm wide. So we can just type that in as well. Make sure that the small hexagon is centered to the larger hexagon. From here, we're going to select the larger hexagon, and we're going to go to the offset tool, and we're going to select inward. Make sure that we select corner, and just make sure that delete original objects is unselected. We don't want to delete the outside layer. And we're going to make this 7mm. This offset we want to put on the orange layer, the T1 layer, which is a toolpath, because we don't want this to be sent to the machine. These are just for guidelines. From there, we're going to go to offset again with that T1 layer selected, and we're going to go to 3mm. If you're wanting to make it out of a different thickness material, you can make this 4mm, 5, 6, whatever material you're going to be using. I'm going to be using 3mm in this scenario. Select OK. So what this has created is a perimeter inside the large hexagon, and this is where we can start getting some dimensions for our borders. So going off of the internal corner, we're just going to click and drag out, hold Shift whilst doing so, and when you get this crosshair, just release the mouse button and you'll get this square. From there, we need to select this square, unlock the padlock, and height we're going to type in 3mm. Bring this down so the top corner of the rectangle marries up with the internal corner of our border. And as you can see, this toolpath shows that this is the maximum size we can have for our decorative panels. So in here, what we can do is make our slot for the tabs of the decorative panel. Select the rectangle tool, and what we're going to do is create a 3mm by 3mm square. So we're just going to go to width 3mm, make sure it's 3mm by 3mm, select the top left hand corner of the square that we've just drawn and bring it to the top left hand corner of the larger rectangle. We're going to create a duplicate by holding Control and pressing D, and we're going to bring this across to the other side. Once you've placed that in the opposite corner, what that's going to do is create these little notches on the side of the decorative panels. These are just layout lines or guidelines, so we've got something to reference to when we start designing the decorative panels. Now what we want to do is create a 12mm by 3mm rectangle. And then the same, we just want to place that next to our smaller square that we created a minute ago. We can put this on a green layer because this is going to be a slot that we're going to cut out. We can make a duplicate of that, select it and move it to the other side. So we're just mirroring this at the moment. And then we just want one more for the middle. So hold Control and press D to make a duplicate. And we're going to select this from the center of the top line of the rectangle. And we're going to move it within this rectangle to make it center. Now what we want to do is make this the same on every side. So we're going to select these 3 green slots and group them together. You can hold Control and press G, or you can go to the top here and select group at the top. What we can do is then select the grouped slots and the outside hexagon, and we're going to go to this circular array tool. If we click on that, if I just zoom out, you can see these other slots have appeared on screen. When we go to copies, we want to select 6 because we have 6 sides, and you can see that it's replicated these slots within our design in exactly the same places as this bottom one. Select OK, and there we have our first component. What we're going to do is just select everything, hold Control and press D to make a duplicate copy, and we're just going to pop this to one side because most of this that we've already created is going to be used when creating the bottom. So we're going to need exactly the same, but we're also going to need to put in more slots for the feet, and we're going to need to change out that hexagon on the bottom for a bayonet style system. Starting with the small hexagon, we can get rid of this by selecting it and pressing delete. Then for the small slots for the feet, we want to go to the rectangle tool, create a box from point to point. So we're going to go from top right hand corner of the first slot that we made, and we're going to drag it to the bottom of the middle slot, and we're going to make that another toolpath. Then we're going to make another rectangle, which is going to be 3mm by 10mm. So width is going to be 10, height is going to be 3. Select that and bring that down, and we're going to, like we did before with the center, we're going to make sure that our cursor changes to the center cursor. Click and hold, and we're going to drag that into the center of the box that we just made. Release that. We can put that onto the green layer. We're going to make a duplicate of that again, so Control D. We're going to do the same. Make sure it's center, drag it down. Before we do that, we need to draw out another rectangle, same as before, clicking on the top right hand corner of the middle slot and bringing it down to the bottom of our right slot. Make that a toolpath again. Then we can select our small slot, and we can drag that into the center. Now what we need to do is select the two rectangles we've just positioned. What you can do is select one, hold Control and select the other. We're going to group these again, so hold Control and press G, or again group icon at the top. Same as last time, make sure that your slots are selected, then hold Control and select the outer hexagon. And we're going to go to the circular array tool again. We want to make sure that we have 6 copies and press OK. And as you can see, it's transferred around the entire project again. For the bayonet system, we need to go to the circle tool, find center of the hexagon, hold Control and Shift and drag out a circle. Make sure that the padlock is closed to keep the aspect ratio the same. And in one of the width or the height, just type in 78 millimeters. It should be 78 by 78, giving us a perfect circle. From there, what we're going to do is go to the offset tool, and we want to make this direction outward, and we want to type in 0.5 millimeters. Select OK. That's going to give us a little bit of tolerance when we come to put the bayonet inside the hole, so it's going to be a nice fit. From there, to make the tabs, we need to create another rectangle. So just drag a rectangle out, unlock the padlock, and the width we are going to make 15 millimeters by 3 millimeters. And we're going to drag this down from the center to the center of the top of the circle. You can either line it up like this, or you can select both, or you can select both the outside and the rectangle itself, come to the top, and then select Align Vertical Center. From there, what we're going to do is just drag this down so these lines cross into the outside circle. So it doesn't matter where you position it as long as it's inside. And then we're going to select the rectangle and the outside circle and go to the circular array tool again. You can put as many tabs on as you want, but I prefer to only use 4, and select OK. Whilst they are still all selected, just group those together. From there, we're going to make sure that the group selection is still selected, and we are going to hold Control and select the outer circle. Just make sure that's selected. If you can't see if it's selected, just move it and then hold Control and press Z to bring it back. And then we're going to go to the weld selected shapes on that boolean tool, and that gives us a slot. From there, what we're going to do is select this internal circle again, go to the offset tool and make this 3 millimeters again. Select OK. Then we're going to select that circle that we just created and the bayonet shape that we created with the rectangles. Then we're going to select the Boolean intersection tool. That's the bottom of the 4 Boolean tools. That's given us a nice rounded curve to our bayonet system. You can either put these on the green layer or the red layer, and this is going to be the base that is now finished. So we can pop this to one side. That's 2 of the components sorted. Next, we're going to be taking a look at the top large hexagon with these decorative pieces attached to it. So we need to make another copy of the first hexagon that we made. So we can select all of that, make a duplicate by holding Control and pressing D, bring it into our workspace. Now we want to keep this internal hexagon this time, but we don't need the toolpaths or the slots for the decorative panels, so we can get rid of those. Now we're going to be concentrating on working out where the slots have got to go for our small decorative panels on the inside. So we need to do a similar thing to what we did for the base. The components that we've just deleted here around the outside, we're basically going to be doing a smaller version of that. So we want to select that smaller hexagon, go to the offset tool, make sure it's selected outward and that we're set it to corner. Make sure that deleted original objects is off and select OK. We want to make sure that this is on a toolpath again, so just select T1. Again, this just ensures that it doesn't get sent to the machine. From here, same principle as last time, we're going to select the rectangle tool, come to the bottom left hand corner of the inside polygon hexagon, hold shift and bring it to the opposite corner. From there, what we're going to do is make this 3mm, make sure the padlock is unlocked. Height we want to make 3mm, and we want to make sure that that is lined up as before. So just make sure that the top left hand corner of the rectangle is married up with the bottom left corner of the hexagon. So same again, we want to make a 3mm by 3mm rectangle. And we want to make sure that it's situated in that corner again. We're going to create a duplicate by holding Control and pressing D. And we're going to bring it across to the other side. So we're making a mirror image again. This time we're going to make our slots 6mm by 3mm. So we can just draw out a rectangle, make sure the padlock's unlocked, and type in 6mm by 3mm. And we can put this onto the green layer. We want to make a duplicate copy, so hold Control and press D. And we're going to move this to the other side again. So again, what we want to do is put another guideline in by creating another rectangle. So go from the top left hand corner to the bottom right hand corner and make sure that it's on the T1 layer. From there, we're going to select one of the slots that we created before and make another duplicate. So hold Control, press D, and we're going to marry this up to the center again. Snap that to the center. Make sure that the slots are all selected. If you want to make sure that all the slots are there, we can just drag this up, make sure that the slots are selected and just hit group. Same again, what we're going to do is make sure that these are selected, hold Control and select the internal polygon this time. Go across to the circular array tool, make sure that we have 6 copies, and as you can see they perfectly align around the outside. Select OK, and you can group these if you want to, just to make sure. One more thing that we need to do is go to the rectangle tool, and we're going to create a box from the left hand corner of the hexagon, and we're going to bring it down to the opposite corner of the hexagon, but where we created that small 3mm by 3mm box before. Make sure that it's selected, hold Control and select the small polygon, and go to the circular array tool again and select 6 copies and select OK. Now you might not be able to see what has gone on here, but what it's done is created this sort of diamond pattern. And this is going to be important because this is the thickness of our panel. The internal corners are going to be touching. So you can see it here on the larger panels. There is a slight gap there, but that's because the timber's warped, but basically the inside corners are going to be meeting, and the outside corners there's a slight gap here. So that's what's created on this point right here. And this is going to be crucial to make sure that we get the right placement and the right dimensions for these decorative panels. These bits, let me just get another one. So these bits here, I'm going to design it where it's got the hole in rather than the pattern all the way around. So this was one of the first prototypes where the pattern goes all the way to the top. I since designed it so it's got these holes at the top, so if you have a solar light in the top, you can feed a string or twine, paracord, whatever you want, and be able to hang this from the top. That's why these are cut out, so they support underneath. So they support underneath this top lip here. This can be a little bit tricky to get right if your material thickness isn't what it's stated when you purchased it, where the moisture's got to it. But this point here in the drawing is crucial to know where to start designing these decorative parts here, where they're going to meet up on this corner. So now you know what these guidelines are for. What we can do is just create a rectangle, and we're going to extend this in a minute, but we want to make sure that the padlock is unlocked. Make sure that the height is set to 3mm, or the thickness of your project, and we're going to make sure that we're center on the vertical line, and we're going to make sure that you're center on the vertical line, and we're going to move this to the center of the internal hexagon, and we're just going to drag that rectangle out so it spans the larger hexagon. So to create the slots for the decorative parts, what we're going to do is go to the rectangle tool. From the top corner of the diamond pattern that was created, we're just going to drag a rectangle out. If we go across here to this 9-circle box, just make sure that you're selected on the left side. That means any adjustments made, the box will stay anchored to the left hand side of the box that we created. Similarly, if you click the center, it will have an anchor to the center, and then your dimensions will change either side. Same with the right side. If you select the right hand side, the dimensions will change anchored from the right hand side. So make sure we're selected on the left side, and make sure the padlock is unlocked. On the width, we want to select 10mm and hit enter. That would have created this rectangle that's 10 by 3. From there, off of the edge of that, we're going to make another rectangle, exactly the same. Make sure it's on the left hand side. Width, we're going to make 8mm. Select enter. This can be put onto the green layer because this is going to be a slot for the tab to fit into. From there, we're going to take another rectangle from the top, drag one out, and we're going to make this 14mm. Make sure it's anchored on the left again. Hit enter, and make sure that is on the T1 toolpath layer again, and then we can select that slot, hold Control and press D. That'll make a duplicate, and we're going to bring this to the other side of the guideline that we've just put in. So we've got our 2 slots. So we've now got our 2 slots made for the tabs of the decorative panels. Now we need to group those 2 slots together. So just make sure you've selected both of those. Go to the group icon or hold Control and press G to group them. Then hold Control and select the outside hexagon, and we're going to go to the circular array tool again, and it's going to put all of these slots in the respective places. Make sure that the copies is selected to 6 as well. We can group those as well if you want. And we can get rid of the guidelines if you want to declutter the drawing. So now we have our 3 larger hexagons. So next we're going to be looking at the decorative panels. We need to bring in this top hexagon here. So what we're going to do is create a rectangle by clicking on the inside corner of the internal polygon. Hold Shift and go to the opposite side. Here we now have a square. Just bring this down. Make sure that the padlock is unlocked, and height wise we're going to type in 180 millimeters. You can make this as tall or as short as you want. These are 180 mil panels, but you can make these shorter or taller if you want to. This is the time to plug in the measurements that you want to use. I'm going to keep mine at 180 millimeters. From here, just going to make sure that all of this is grouped. From here, I'm just going to come up to this top left hand corner of the rectangle, and I'm going to move it to where we took our reference measurements from. We're on the bottom corner here. From there, I'm going to create rectangles on top of the slots that we've already made. And these are going to become the tabs for our decorative panels. So one selected, we just need to make sure that we select the others. And again, what we can do is just move those up and hold Control and press Z to bring them back down. Grab hold of the panel as well by holding Control and selecting the larger rectangle. We're just going to bring this down. We're going to select those 3 tabs that we've just created. Going to hold Control and press D to make a duplicate, and we're going to bring this down to the bottom. Make sure that your center of the center tab, and we're just going to center that to the bottom of our panel. Make sure that the tabs that you've just selected are grouped. Next, we're going to select the larger rectangle, go to the offset shapes, select inwards on the direction, make sure it's set to corner, and make sure delete original objects is unselected. And then we're going to make this 7 millimeters. Select OK, and that gives us the border around the outside of our decorative panels. From there, select the larger rectangle and the tabs that we created earlier. Come across to the weld tool and select that. And now our tabs are joined to our larger rectangle. We need to do the same to the bottom. So again, just select the tabs and the larger rectangle and select weld. And there we have our tabs and our frame. We're going to put this outer rectangle, the shape that we've just created, onto the red layer. And from here, what we can do is you can create whatever sort of pattern you want inside. I will be using a Kumiko pattern. They are available on my Etsy store. I also have a couple of videos where you can design the Kumiko patterns that I've already released on YouTube. So you don't have to purchase anything. You can just go and watch a video on how to create one of those Kumiko patterns. I'm just going to select pattern number 1 because it's the first one there. This is what you'll get in the Etsy packs. So I think there's 3 different ones: patterns 1 to 10, 11 to 20, and then the whole pack of 20. But they're all made from this geometry. So we start off with a triangle, we make it into a hexagon, and then we basically duplicate these and we offset all of these shapes to make this sort of pattern, and then you can expand these patterns if you want. But I'm just going to use one of the ones that I've already got to hand. What we're going to do is make sure that it's not too fragile. If we bring it into the workspace, we can see here that at the moment the pattern is 4mm wide. So we can probably bring this down to about 3mm and it will still be fairly strong. That's about 2.5, nearly 3mm there. If you find the center of the Kumiko pattern, we can go to the pencil icon to draw a couple of lines, and we're just going to draw a couple of lines to find the center of that pattern. So we've gone from the corner of this side. I could have also gone from the middle and of the vertical and middle of the horizontal. We just want to find this center here. Just going to put that on a T1 layer just in case. Then we're going to take that offset rectangle that we made earlier. We're going to make a duplicate by holding Control and pressing D. And we're going to line this up onto the center of the lines that we've just drawn. We can delete these because we don't need that anymore. So we're going to select the pattern and the rectangle and come across to the Boolean intersection tool and select that. And just to make sure that the pattern is cut out the right way, what I like to do, which is a little bit childish, is basically trace through the pattern and make sure you can reach the other side. Because this bit wants to be left behind and all of these are going to be cut out. So what I like to do is trace with my cursor through the pattern to make sure that this is going to be connected to the frame. And what we can do, just to show you a different possibility that might happen, is if you click on a different Boolean tool, what you can see here is the pattern's going to be cut out the wrong way. So you can't make it through the maze without crossing a line. Okay, so that's kind of my way of making sure that I'm not doing something wrong, but it's quite fun and childish at the same time. So from there, we're just going to move it from the center and we're going to drag it into our panel space. And that is our large decorative panel sorted for this design. And for this, we're obviously going to need 6 of these. So what we can do is just bring it to the side. We can go to the array tool, the grid array, and then we can make 6 copies. We can go 3 across in the X columns and 2 up if you want, or the other way around. Just make sure that they are spaced out so they don't overlap. And hit OK. So we have all of our decorative panels. We have our top, bottom and middle hexagon. Now we're going to create the feet for the lantern. So we're going to take this bottom, or the bottom hexagon, but it's the middle at the moment. We just want to make sure that it's the hexagon that's got the slots taken out for the feet. Just going to drag that into the workspace. Same again as last time, we're going to go to the rectangle tool. And we're going to create this box again. So top left hand corner, hold shift, and we're going to the opposite corner. So same way as we created the panels. We're just going to bring this down into our workspace, and we want to make the height of this 15 millimeters. Make sure that the padlock is unchecked because we want to keep the same width. So this is now 15 millimeters by the width of our panel. From here, we're going to take this up to our slots again. So just clicking and dragging, marrying that up with the bottom corner of our guideline. Release that there. And similar to the decorative panels, we're just going to copy the slots across. So we're just going from the top left hand corner of the smaller slot and dragging it to the bottom right hand corner and doing that with both of those slots. We want to make sure that we select both of those. Make sure they're selected. Is there a green one in there as well? Yeah. Make sure they are selected. If you drag them up, you can hold Control and press Z to bring them back. And then hold Control and select that 15mm rectangle and just bring it down. We can create whatever shape you would like with the foot. I like to have 2 points of contact on the bottom rather than a flat bottom, because it will help stop that rocking motion if you put it on a shelf or a table or even on the floor. It'll help it stop rocking if there's less points of contact. So all we're going to do is create a rectangle that is the width, but if we come across to this 9 circle pattern at the top here and make sure we're on the bottom layer in the middle, we can make sure that this height is 6 millimeters. Make sure that the padlock is unlocked and press OK. And for the width, if we just keep the cursor on the end of this 78.453, what we can do is hit the /. So we're going to divide this number and we can divide it by 2, hit enter, and that gives us an equal spacing each side of our rectangle. If you want to, you can divide it by 3. That gives us a larger foot on each side. So because I want this slightly smaller than half, go into divide it. So /1.5, hit enter. And then we've got a smaller foot on each side. We can keep this as a guideline. If we select the larger rectangle that we drew beforehand, right click and go to convert to path, because we want to edit the nodes on this. Make sure it's selected. Go to the node edit tool in the left hand toolbar. On these 2 corners we want to hit I, and that will insert a node, and we're going to do this on both of those guideline points. And then we're going to find the center of this larger rectangle, and all we're going to do is bring that line up to the center of our smaller rectangle. Because it doesn't lock to the center of everything, we're just going to create a box that starts from the center, and we're just going to drag that down to the other corner. Go to the node edit tool again and select the larger box. Should still have these 2 nodes that we added. So we can go from the center of that. Now we have a reference to where we can position our line, and we can just select off of that. We can get rid of the other couple of guidelines, and we've now got this nice arch inside. We can radius the corners, so we can make this a 5mm radius, And we can just take off those corners if you want on the bottom. And then last but not least, we can select the tabs that we made earlier and the shape that we've just created and go to the weld boolean tool, and that marries everything together. Make sure that this is on the red layer and we can put this to one side. We're also going to need 6 of these. So if we go across to the grid array, do the same as what we did with the decorative panels. We can have 3 in the X columns and 2 in the Y rows and select OK. We have all of the feet for our project. So next we are going to be creating this small component here. This is the top decorative panel. First of all, we need to put this one to one side, and we are going to need to drag this one into our workspace. This is the one with the smaller slots around the internal hexagon. From here, it's the same principles as the larger decorative panel. We need to select the rectangle tool, and where we drew out the guidelines for the slots off of the internal hexagon, we need to create another rectangle. So go from the top left hand corner, hold shift and drag across to the opposite corner. This is going to give us the width of our panel. We can just bring this down, and then we're going to want to make the height of this 30 millimeters. Again, you can adjust the height of these to whatever you want. You can make them as thin as you want, or you can make them taller. For this, we're going to use 30 millimeters. Make sure that the padlock is unlocked and make it 30 millimeters so the width stays the same as the internal hexagon. And we're going to bring this up like we did last time, and we're going to make sure that the top left hand corner of our rectangle is lined up with the edge of our guideline from our slots. We're going to create our tabs by selecting the rectangle and drawing over the top of our slots. So we need to create those 3 rectangles. Go back to the selection tool, hold Control and select each one of our tabs we have just drawn. Again, we can move that up, make sure that they are selected, hold Control and press Z to bring them back down to where we moved them from, and we can group these, hold Control and select the rectangle as well. We can bring this down into our workspace. Now these are already grouped, we can hold Control and press D, and we can bring these down to the bottom. We want to make sure that we select it from the center of the center slot, and all we're going to do is bring this up and make sure that it's center to the rectangle we drew. From there we can select both the rectangle and our slots and go to the weld boolean tool, select that. So this is an important note, I've just selected the weld tool and we have a discrepancy here. What we can do is hold Control and press Z. That'll bring everything back. What has happened is Lightburn's basically picking up that this isn't overlapping our rectangle. So what we can do is just bring the dimension up just so we can see that the lines have crossed. And then we can go back and select both of those components again, go back to the weld boolean tool, and it will have worked this time. We need to do the same for the top. Select the rectangle and the tabs that we created on the top, go to the weld tool and select weld. Because I forgot to add the frame, just go to the rectangle tool and we're going to create a rectangle the same size as what it was before. put that onto the T1 orange layer, the toolpath, and we're going to offset that rectangle by 4 millimeters. Make sure that it's set to inward and corner. You can delete the original object this time because we don't need that rectangle that we're offsetting from, and select OK. So that rectangle that we used to offset has now gone, and we have the border on the inside. So same as before, for the larger panels, we're going to import or create a design for the frame. I'm going to use the same pattern again. Just bring this to one side. I'm going to get rid of those. Again, make sure that it's at least a couple of millimeters to keep some strength. So just bring it into your workspace, and as you can see, it's just over 2 millimeters there. I'm going to bring it a little bit smaller. Just over 2 millimeters. Find the center again, or a part of the pattern that you like. So we went center last time, I'm going to go center again. And we're just going to use the draw tool or the pen tool to create a couple of lines to make sure that this is centered. You could also center it on a different part of the pattern, but I'm going to keep things the same. Select the toolpath rectangle, hold Control and press D to make a duplicate, and we're just going to drag that over our cross and make sure that it's centered. From there we can select those two lines and delete those. And again, we can select our pattern and the rectangle, go to the Boolean intersection tool and click that. Once again, make sure that the Boolean tool has worked the correct way. Again, just tracing the cursor through it, we can make sure that the Boolean tool has worked the correct way, and we're going to place this inside our framework. We can group all of this together, hold Control and press G, or go to the group icon at the top here, and that's our small framework sorted. We also need 6 of these as well. So you can either press Control D and move them out, or we can go to the grid array. Once it's selected, we can go to the grid array, and we can go 3 across and 2 up again. And then we can just bring these closer together. Select OK, and bring those down part of the design. So now we have the small decorative panels, we've got the feet, the larger decorative panels, the bottom, the top, and the middle hexagon there. So we've only got a few more components left, and this design will be done. So next we have these decorative bits on the side here. There's a little bit of node editing to do with these, but nothing too strenuous. I will walk you through every step as usual. For this, we're going to need to draw out another rectangle. So go to the rectangle tool, draw out a random sized rectangle, and we're going to make the width 50 and the height 57. From here, what we're going to do is go to the radius tool, and we're going to take off this top left hand corner. Going to leave it at 10 millimeters. To create this shape on top, we're going to use the node edit tool. So come across to the toolbar on the left hand side and click on node edit. So what we're going to do is hover over this top right hand corner and press S on the keyboard. That's going to smooth this node out, and we can drag this into a shape of your choice. It doesn't have to resemble anything like my design if you don't want. You can literally make this any shape you want it to be, and we can just have a play about with these handles, maybe smooth this this top out as well. We can just bring that over, maybe bring this node down, bring this in a little, make it nice and gradual. Original lines on this 90-degree corner haven't changed, and this radius. You can bring that handle down 1 millimeter down. This handle is 16 millimeters over from that node and 1 millimeter down. And this is placed roughly 10-15 millimeters up and 20 millimeters over from this corner. And again, something like that will do for this tutorial. Then we can go back to the selection tool. So that's given us this sort of profile at the top here and this back edge. What we're going to do is create this notch in the decorative panel to house over the top of our 2 thicknesses of wood for the solar light to fit through. So to do that, what we're going to do is bring one of the components in that we made before, and that's these small decorative panels. Because I used the grid array tool to make 6 of them, they're grouped together, so just need to ungroup those. Select one of them and create a duplicate and bring that out. We can group these back together. Just going to bring this into our workspace, and what we need to do is bring this right hand corner to the bottom corner of the shape we've just drawn, and that's going to allow us to find where the notch needs to start at the bottom. So what we can do is go to the rectangle tool, and we can place it on the internal corner and just draw a rectangle into our shape that we've just created. Go to the selection tool, make sure on this 9 circle diagram here just to bring this down to the bottom to anchor it at that lower point, and the height we're going to make it twice the material thickness that we have. Now just a quick note, this is sold at 3 millimeters, this MDF. As with all materials, no matter what it is, I have the luxury of being able to machine my own wood. So this solid wood, I machine this down to the thickness that I want. As soon as it comes out of the planer, if I make something out of this, it usually fits together really, really well. But if I leave it in my workshop for any length of time, this can swell. Like, wood's a natural product and it's going to change in thickness when it comes to humidity. If I just grab my verniers, I'll show you what I mean. This material is sold at 3 millimeters. As you can see, my verniers say 0, 0. And then when I put it on my material, it's actually more than 3 millimeters. Like, regardless of what it is, wherever you put it, it'll be a different measurement. Oh, as you can see, 0, 0 again. No matter where you put it on that material, it will vary in thickness. So I like to make this slot slightly thicker than it needs to be, just to make sure we don't have any issues when it comes to assembly. So although I'm creating this file for 3 millimeters, if we go by that, it's nearly 3.2 millimeters, which means because we're using 2 layers on the top, that discrepancy in the thickness of the material in one layer is going to be doubled because we're using 2 layers. So if I was using that MDF, this slot would need to be cut at 6.4. So we can change this to 6.4 millimeters. So when I go through the assembly video, there's an order in which I go about cutting these. These 2 top hexagons here and one of these is one of the first things that you need to cut, other than what we haven't got to yet, which is the first thing, which is a kerf test. It's one of these panels that's on screen now without the pattern in, and we're going to make up a little slot board to make sure that your material fits how you want it for assembly first. So that gets cut first. then the 2 layers on top and this get cut next. Before you do anything else, that's just to make sure that you don't have any issues assembling this, otherwise you're going to have to recut parts. So that slot is going to be double the thickness of your material. So in this instance, I'm just going to make it 6 millimeters. And then I'll go through how to change this if you're struggling to get the parts to fit. So what we're going to do is just move this to one side. So we know the thickness of this slot is going to be anchored at the bottom of that rectangle there. What we're going to do is bring in this bottom hexagon again, the one with the smaller slots in, because these 2 slots here are where this is going to fit into. So we're just going to drag this over. So what I'm going to do is on this diamond part of our grid line, on the top point here, what I'm going to do is select it from that point, and we're going to drag that up and marry it to that corner. This is where the 2 panels meet, and so long as this back end here doesn't go over the outside of the larger hexagon, we don't need to change the size of this. If it does, just move that in slightly. So what we can do, just to make sure that all of our design work is the same, on this 9 circle layout, I'm just going to move that dot to the left bottom corner, and then width, I'm going to leave the padlock unlocked, and with the width I'm going to make that 48.5 millimeters, 48.5, and hit enter. So if you do the same, everything's going to be the same throughout this tutorial. From here, all I'm going to do is pick out one of these top hexagons, hit Control and press D, and we're just going to bring that into our workspace. I'm also going to put this one on a T1 layer, just in case anything gets moved over. So we're going to center this circle to the center of the internal hexagon. And what we can see here is this is the notch that is going to marry up with this notch. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2 parts, so the bit that we designed with the node edit tool and that rectangle, which is going to be our slot. We're just going to select those 2, and we're going to bring this down until we're roughly in line with the notch selected in that toolpath layer. And we're just going to select that rectangle, and we're going to move it so it's just slightly over the toolpath layer slot of the hexagon, and that way there's just a little bit of play in between both slots. From there we can select that rectangle and the shape that we made earlier, and we can bring that back up. Just make sure that the corner of our shape that we've just drawn and the corner of that diamond are still connected. If you use the arrow keys, it should go back to where it was. Next, we're going to draw the tabs for this next component. So we need to go to the rectangle tool again. And again, we're just going to draw over those slots. Go back to the select tool, hold Control and select the other slot. Then we're going to want to select the rectangle and the shape that we created earlier. And we can just move this to one side. From here, what we can do is just make sure that these 2 tabs are on the red layer. We can group those by holding Control and pressing G, or go into the top toolbar. Select the shape that we drew, and we can go to the weld boolean tool again and weld those 2 tabs to that shape. And then we can go across, select both the rectangle and the shape, and we can go to the boolean subtract tool. Again, if this happens, hold Control, press Z, and do it again, Boolean subtract. For the decorative part inside, I'm going to make it like my other designs, which are behind me. They have a small hole in the top, so we're just going to select the circle tool, hold Control and Shift, and draw out a circle. Just make sure it's sort of over 5 mil, and then you can place this wherever you want. That looks roughly about right there, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to make this the green layer. And then for the pattern for the bottom, we're going to make sure that we have the select tool selected. Select the outer shape and then go to the offset tool. And we're going to go 4 millimeters again. Make sure that it is inward, make sure it's corner, and make sure that delete the original objects is turned off. Select OK. And all I want is this bottom section here. I don't want the pattern to go all the way around the outside. I just want this bottom section. So what we can do is take the rectangle tool, start the rectangle from the bottom left hand corner, hold Shift, and bring it to the bottom right hand corner. Go to the select tool, and we're just going to bring this down so it's just under the shoulder of that offset line. And then what we can do is hold Control and select that offset line from before, and then we can go to the Boolean intersection tool. If we click that, that'll give us the bottom line here. We're going to put this onto the T1 layer for the time being because we don't want it cutting out, and we can group this component together. So same as before, if you've created your own design, you can take a part of your own design and put it in there. You don't need to put this in at all if you don't want to, but I am going to bring in one of my Kumiko patterns again. So I think it was pattern 1, and we're just going to do the same as what we did with the large decorative panels and the smaller ones. Bring it into the workspace. Make sure that it's larger than 2 millimeters on one of these staves. That's just over. That'll be fine for the tutorial. Then we're going to go to the pen tool, find the center one, or the part of the pattern or the part of the pattern of your choice. Going to make sure that we're center by drawing the lines on with the pen tool. Then from there, we're going to make a duplicate of that T1 layer. So just ungroup it if you've already grouped it. Hold Control and press D. Bring that out to one side. And then select the last component and just group that back together again. And this can be put to one side. This panel, it doesn't have to be center, because center of this panel kind of looks off center, so you can play about with it to get your preferred location. I like to put it on center and then just move it left and right. That looks okay. Just going to delete those two lines. So we're just going to select the design and the T1 layer at the same time, and we're going to go to the Boolean intersection tool again. Click that. Make sure that the Boolean intersection tool has worked the right way by drawing your cursor through. Then we can place this inside our T1 layer, and as long as it's roughly there, I mean, what we can do is go to the center of that line and drag it across and move it to center of the T1 layer. That is probably the hardest component to design, and that one is now done. So we're just going to bring this down to the bottom, go to the grid array, and we need 6 of these again. So X columns 3, Y rows is 2. Make sure there's no overlapping lines. So we need to move the X spacing out. Click OK. These will be grouped together as well. And now we have all 6 of those components. So what we want to do is get rid of that duplicate copy of the small decorative panel, and we want to get rid of that hexagon and the circle on top, so we can delete that and the circle, and we can bring this hexagon back down. So on to the next component, super simple one. Again, not necessary to cut out if you're going to be using a solar LED light in the top, but it's going to be this hexagon and this eyelet on the top. So what we're going to do is go to the polygon tool, hold Control and Shift and drag out a polygon. Make sure that the padlock is locked, and we are going to make the width 80 millimeters. Press enter. We're going to put this onto the red layer. Then we need to go to the rectangle tool, draw out a random rectangle. Make sure the padlock is unlocked. We're going to make the height the thickness of the material, so 3 millimeters. Width, we're going to make 15 millimeters and press enter. We just need to select this and place it center. So we can either place it center or grab both components and hit the bullseye tool at the top. And we're just going to make that slot green. That was a super simple one after that last one, wasn't it? To make the eyelet, what we're going to do is go to the selection tool, select that slot we just made, hold Control and press D, and we're going to just bring that above so it's touching on top. This is going to be the tab. We can put this on the red layer, and then we can go to the circle tool, hold Control and Shift. That will keep the aspect ratio constrained. We'll make this circle 20 millimeters. We'll just lock that padlock and then put in 20 millimeters. So we're going to select this circle from the center at the bottom, and we're going to drag this down to the center of the tab. Make sure that the dot is in the center of these nine circles. We're going to make this 8 millimeters. And that's going to be center of this circle. Then we want to take the outer circle and the tab, make sure they're both selected, and go to the weld tool. And now we have made our eyelet. Just going to put that internal circle on the green layer and then group those two parts together. We can drag that eyelet to one side. And now we have our top hexagon and the eyelet if you require it. The last thing we have to do is the bayonet system. That is literally the last thing we have to do before the design is finished. So we are now onto the last components, which is the bayonet system. So we've got the bayonet part itself, the spacer, we've got the knob with these little cutouts to help grip onto, and then the cover piece that fits to the base, and then we have this spacer afterwards. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bits, and then at the end I'm just going to show you how to create this little curve test piece, and then that's the design work done. So first of all is a nice simple one. It's going to be the bayonet bit itself. What we're going to do is come across to this base layer. We're just going to select that bayonet part here. Just going to hold Control and press D to make a duplicate and into the workspace. Then all we're going to do is go to the offset tool. We're going to make this 0.5 millimeter smaller, so offset distance 0.5. Make sure that the direction is set to inwards and that the corner style is set to corner, and select OK. This just allows a small gap around the outside so we get a nice easy fit, and we can bring this off to one side. Next is going to be this bit. This basically acts as a stop so you don't turn it too far and it be able to fall out of the base. So it'll basically insert and then rotate and stop on that edge. For this, we're going to take the duplicated part that we took from here, and we're going to hold Control and press D to make a duplicate. Whilst holding Control, we're going to take this handle and we're just going to rotate this, and you can see that it's going in steps rather than just rotating it by itself. I'm going to hold Control and use that handle to bring it over. We just want to make sure that it's still overlapping on this edge. And then we're going to hold Control and press D to make another duplicate, and we're going to hold Control and move that handle one step over. Once we've done that, we're going to select those three and go to the Weld Union or Weld Boolean tool, and that's going to give us that slot. If we bring over the bayonet fitting and center that, what we can see here is we can rotate it within that gap, and we can see that that action is nice and smooth. Just move that first bayonet piece to one side. Then we're going to go to the circle tool, hold Control and Shift whilst being in the center. Click and drag. We're going to put this on the red layer. Make sure that the padlock is closed, and in these 9 circles we want to be centered. And we're just going to change this width to 95 millimeters. That's our second part done. That's this part. From there, we're going to select that circle that we just created, hold Control and press D, and we're going to make this 77 millimeters. Just make sure that the padlock is closed and hit enter, and that's going to give us the ring on the outside. So what we want to do is just select that outer circle, hold Control and press D to make a duplicate, and then we're going to select that internal circle and move this to one side. Hold Control and press G or group at the top here, and we've just created this circle that goes on top to cover up the stop mechanism. We're also done with this one now, so we can hold Control and press G to make sure that this one's grouped, and we can pop that one to one side. We also need a spacer, which is going to be the same size as the radius of that circle, so the tabs stick out. So all we're going to do is go to the circle tool and find the center of the bayonet piece, hold Control and Shift, and then just drag out until you touch, until the edges meet. We're at 77.923. So what we can do is make sure that the padlock is closed and type in 78 millimeters. And that'll be the exact same size. We can bring this to one side. Also, for cutting the components out, you can see that this spacer fits inside this other component. So to maximize our material, we can just place that inside when it comes to cutting out. So we can put this on the green layer as well. So we have the cover, the bayonet, the spacer, the stop. All we need to do now is make the knob for the bottom. For that component, what we're going to do is go to the circle tool, hold Control and Shift to keep the aspect ratio the same, and we're just going to make this circle 110 millimeters. Make sure that the padlock is closed and press enter. From here, what we're going to do is just make a duplicate of that, so hold Control and press D. What we're going to do is, with one of those circles, we're just going to move this up by clicking on the center of the top line, and we're going to move it to one of the 10mm grid lines. So each one of these squares is 10 by 10. We're just going to move it up to one of those 10mm grid lines. Then we can move that duplicate in, take it by the center at the bottom, take it by the center at the bottom, and we're just going to count down 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or depending on how your arrow keys are set up. Mine are set up to 0.5 millimeter, so I can just tap down 10 times. And that's going to bring that circle in to 5 millimeters. Then what we can do is select both of those and go to the circular array tool. You can put in as many notches as you like, but for this case I'm going to put in 5 copies and select OK. Whilst they are selected, we're going to group these. So you can hold Control and press G or go to the top toolbar to group them. And then we're going to select the middle circle with the rest of the grouped circles. Then we're going to go to the Boolean subtract tool. And here we have made our knob for the bottom. The only thing we need to do is take the spacer that we made earlier. So that's the circle inside the other shape that I'd shown earlier. We're just going to make a duplicate copy of that. So holding Control and pressing D. And we're going to drag this to the center. All we're going to do is put this on a different layer. This circle wants to be engraved. I don't think it will come up that well on the camera, but all that's going to do is mark a line around the outside so you know exactly where to position that spacer. When it comes to assembly, we'll have the knob at the bottom, then the spacer, then the bayonet fitting, and then on the base this will be stuck to the base, and then the cover will go on top. We just need to pop that knob onto a red layer, group these, just make sure that the engraving layer is on top of the other layer, so it's one of the first things that gets sent to the machine. Otherwise it will cut out the outside component first, and if it drops down and it will try to engrave afterwards, it might be in the wrong place. So just make sure that it's set up right in the cuts and layers window. And then we have all of our components cut out, ready to send to the machine. The last thing I want to touch on is the kerf offset that I do for every project. And this just helps making sure to get the right settings first. I just picked up the wrong one. I actually had to cut 4 of these out to get the right settings before I cut everything else out on my machine. So what this does is we cut one of these sections out without the pattern in the middle, and then we make one of these to make sure that this fits to however you want it to fit. If you want it tighter, you can make it tighter, and if you want it looser, you can make it looser before sending all of the project to the machine to cut it out. Worst thing you want is to send a project to the machine and find that it doesn't fit together, or it falls apart by itself, like these slots are too loose. So what we're going to do is take one of these panels, so we need to ungroup those. We're just going to select one of those, hold Control and press D and move this out. And we're just going to go back and group those back together again. Then what we're going to do, just bring it into the workspace, ungroup everything. Then we're just going to get rid of this middle section. So we're left with this red shape. From there, all we're going to do is go to the rectangle tool, click and drag out and just marry it up with the other side. And we can make this whatever measurement you want. I'm going to make the height 15 millimeters. Just make sure that the padlock is unlocked. I'm going to make it 15 millimeters. Then from here, what we're going to do is bring that rectangle up so it's center. Go to the rectangle tool, and we're just going to draw out these tabs to make them slots. Go to the select tool and just move that shape out of the way. Select those 3 slots and put them onto the green layer and make sure that they are grouped. So hold Control and press G or go to the top. Select the rectangle and the 3 slots and just click on the bullseye tool at the top there. And you have just created a simple kerf offset calibration tool basically. and this is going to help you out before sending everything to the machine. We can just pop these to one side, and that is the entire project done. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial video. I know it's taken a long time to get through, but hopefully if you are a beginner or an intermediate designer, hopefully you'll be able to take something away with you that you may not have learnt before. I know this project was a long time coming, but I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't done so already, please remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps my YouTube channel out. Don't forget to check out the description box below. It'll have links to my Etsy shop and the assembly video for this project. There'll be a few tips and tricks in there to help along the way. But thanks again for watching this video. I know it's been a long one, and I shall probably see you in the assembly video.